The mind is often pictured as if it were made of separate parts. One thought ends, another begins, and consciousness advances by adding discrete units together. William James argues that this picture, what we might call the beads on a string, model describes what mental life is actually like. Consciousness is not a necklace of completed ideas. It is a stream. And to call it a stream is not to use a poetic metaphor as decoration. It is to insist on a psychological fact. Many theories erase. The transitions between thoughts are real, and they carry meaning. James begins from introspective description, but in a disciplined way. If you look inward at your own experience, you do not find a set of isolated ideas sitting side by side like objects on a shelf. You find motion. You find overlap. A thought shades into the next. A feeling shifts into an interpretation. Perception becomes an expectation. Even when you hold an idea, it sits inside a moving field that changes as soon as attention changes. This is why James rejects a static categorization of consciousness. The mind is not a warehouse of contents. It is a continuous activity in time. A key part of James's analysis is the distinction between substantive and transitive phases of consciousness. Substantive phases are the relatively stable resting places of thought moments, when you can say, "This is what I'm thinking." These are the phases that are easiest to write down, and therefore they dominate many theories. But James insists that they are not the whole of mental life. Between substantive phases are transitive phases, the flights, the passages, the in-between states where thought moves, connects, and transforms. These phases are harder to name precisely, but they are essential. Without them, there would be no continuity of meaning, only disconnected snapshots. James then makes his most underestimated point. Much of meaning lives in what he calls the fringe of consciousness. The fringe is the halo of vague awareness that surrounds whatever is in focus. It includes the sense of relevance, direction, and fit. You may not have a word yet, but you feel that it is on the verge of coming. You may not have an argument fully formed, but you feel where it is going. You may not have recalled a name, but you have the feeling of knowing. These fringe phenomena are not errors. They are part of how the mind navigates meaning before it becomes articulate. This is why the beads on a string model fails. It captures the substantive beads, but it ignores the string. The transitions and fringe relations that make the beads belong to one sequence rather than to random scatter. If you remove the string, you cannot explain why one thought leads to another, why a sentence is understood as a unity. James's stream model forces psychology to account for that structure rather than pretending that only clear, nameable contents are real. James also emphasizes that the stream is selective. Consciousness is not continuous in the sense of everything at once. It is continuous as a flow of selection. Attention, for James, is the fundamental act of selection. What you attend to becomes your experience. This means the stream always has a direction shaped by interest. Interest pulls attention. Attention shapes what becomes salient. The world may contain far more than we can process, but our lived reality is what the stream selects and organizes. This selectivity also explains why subjective reality can shift quickly. A small change in attention can reorganize the whole field. A new worry enters, and suddenly the same room feels different. A new purpose appears, and distractions lose their force. James's stream model treats these shifts as normal and structural. Consciousness is an ongoing construction of relevance. The deeper philosophical payoff is that James's stream does not treat the mind as a set of sensory atoms that are later connected. He believes the connections are part of experience from the start. The stream contains relations, continuities, contrasts, tendencies, transitions. That is why the fringe matters. It is where relations are experienced as direction and meaning rather than as explicit propositions. At this point, the connection to functionalism becomes clear. Functionalism is the view that mental processes should be understood by what they do. James's stream shows what consciousness does. It selects, connects, anticipates, and stabilizes meaning through time. The function of the stream is not to hold static contents, but to maintain a coherent direction of experience that supports action. This is why the stream is the core architecture that allows habits to form, beliefs to stabilize, and decisions to become possible. The connection to belief is equally strong. In James's account, belief is not only a sentence you assent to. Belief is an orientation that structures attention and expectation. The stream is the medium in which that orientation operates. When you believe something, the fringe of consciousness changes. Different cues feel relevant. Different interpretations feel natural. To change belief is to change the stream's direction, not merely to swap words. Consciousness is a stream, not a chain of beads. Its continuity depends on transitions, transitive phases, and fringe meanings. The stream is continuous but selective, constantly constructing relevance through attention. Because the stream is the medium of habit, will, and belief, understanding it is the conceptual foundation for everything else about the mind.